They called me a nobody. A guard. A man meant to stand at gates and open doors for people who never even learned my name. They looked at me with pity, some with disgust and others with laughter. To them I was invisible, a shadow. But what no one knew, not even the woman I loved, was that behind the uniform, behind the silence, behind the life of humiliation, I carried a truth so heavy it burned in my chest every single day. I was not poor. I was not powerless. I was the hidden heir to an empire so vast, it could crush every man who mocked me. Yet I stayed silent. I hid my name. I chose to live as a nobody because I wanted one thing, love that was real. And then came Vera. She didn't see a guard. She didn't see poverty. She saw me. She loved me when I had nothing to give her, when society pointed fingers and called her a fool for choosing me. She stood by me when her family fell from riches to rags, when the world mocked her name. She held my hand when I had no power, no voice, no defense. But life has a way of breaking secrets open. And when the truth came out, when the world finally discovered who I really was, everything changed. This is not just a story about love. It is a story about betrayal, humiliation, loyalty, and redemption. It is the story of how a nobody became everything. And it all began the night Vera found me standing in the rain. Hey, story lovers. Before we jump into today's epic tale, smash that subscribe button to stay hooked on more adventures. I never thought the uniform I wore would define me. But in this city, people don't see the man behind the uniform, they see the paycheck, the position, the social class. To them I wasn't Michael. I wasn't a son. I wasn't a dreamer. I was simply the guard. The man who opened gates, nodded silently at people who wouldn't even bother to greet back, and stood in the background like a piece of furniture. I wore that dark blue security uniform every morning, and with every button I fastened, I felt like I was stitching a label of shame across my chest. Yet, what no one knew, what not even I knew at the time, was that my parents were the wealthiest people in the city. They were billionaires hiding in plain sight, letting me live as though I were a nobody. They called it a test. But back then all I could see was humiliation. And the sharpest humiliation of all came from the woman I thought loved me. Her name doesn't even deserve to be remembered, but for the sake of the story, let's call her Cynthia. She was beautiful, the kind of beauty that made heads turn when she entered a room. Long hair, flawless skin, expensive taste. To me she had once been everything. But to her I was never enough. Cynthia loved the attention that came with wealth. She loved the way expensive wine sparkled in crystal glasses, the way designer heels clicked against marble floors, the way her friends gossiped about men who could afford the latest cars. I was none of that. I was just a guard. She would never say it outright in the beginning, but I saw the disdain in her eyes every time she looked at my uniform. I saw the subtle roll of her pupils when I told her I had to work a night shift. And then came the day of her brother's wedding, the day she crushed whatever dignity I had left. Cynthia's family wanted a grand celebration. Her brother insisted on having a luxury car as part of the bridal convoy. Cynthia came to me, tears in her eyes, begging. "Michael, please," she said, her manicured fingers clutching my arm. "I know you don't have much, but it's my brother's wedding. Everyone will be there. Please don't let me down. Please just find a way. Love makes fools of us all." I agreed. I took a loan, 30% interest. I had no idea how I would pay it back, but I told myself I'd figure it out. I told myself I was proving my love. What I didn't know was that my parents, quietly watching from the shadows, secretly cleared the debt for me. They wanted to see if I would bend, if I would break, if I would still fight even when cornered. But Cynthia? She didn't see sacrifice. She saw weakness. At the wedding, while I stood sweating in a cheap suit I had borrowed, she paraded around with another man, tall, rich, arrogant. He wore wealth the way I wore my uniform, except his uniform was a designer suit and a luxury watch. I walked up to her, confusion clouding my voice. "Cynthia, who's this?" She didn't flinch. She didn't even pretend. "This," she said with a smile that cut through me, "is Nicholas. My real boyfriend. Michael, let's stop pretending. You're just a guard. What future do you think you can give me? Look at yourself." And then she laughed. In front of her friends. In front of her family. That laugh still echoes in my memory. Shame eats away at you like acid. After that day, I couldn't breathe without hearing Cynthia's words. I couldn't close my eyes without seeing her laughing face. I walked around with my chest hollow and my spirit crushed. And maybe that's why I didn't see the car. It was a rainy evening, the sky dark and heavy. I was walking home after a late shift, my umbrella broken from the wind, when the screech of tires ripped through the air. Headlights blinded me. The impact was violent. The world spun. My body hit the ground with a crack and pain swallowed me whole. The last thing I remember before passing out was the sound of a woman's voice. Please? Somebody help. Call an ambulance. When I woke up in the hospital, groggy and broken, she was there. There. I didn't know her before that night. She was just a stranger who had been driving past when she saw me lying on the road. But she wasn't just any stranger. While others slowed down, looked, and drove away, she stopped. She called emergency. She followed the ambulance. She paid part of my hospital bill when she realized I had no one to turn to. And she stayed. Every day she came. Sometimes with food, sometimes just to sit by my bed. She wasn't rich, I could see that. She wore simple clothes, carried herself with quiet grace, and spoke with warmth. She had no reason to be there, no obligation to me, yet she was. I tried calling Cynthia. Again and again. No answer. Eventually, I discovered she had blocked me. Vera, on the other hand, was there every morning and every night. She asked how I was feeling. She adjusted my pillows. She even argued with the nurses when they neglected me. And for the first time in my life, I felt something different. Something purer. I thought betrayal was about action. Someone cheating, someone lying, someone raising their voice. But with Cynthia, it was her silence that destroyed me. The unanswered calls. The blocked number. The way she disappeared, as if our history was nothing more than dust in the wind. One evening, just before my discharge from the hospital, I tried one last time. I dialed her number on a borrowed phone. To my shock, it rang. My heart leaped into my throat when I heard her voice on the other end. Cynthia, I whispered. It's me. There was a pause. Then a laugh. Not a laugh of joy, but one that burned through my chest like acid. Michael, I told you to stop calling me. You don't get it, do you? You're a guard. A nobody. You're not my type. Stop embarrassing yourself. Before I could reply, the line went dead. That night, I lay in my hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, tears streaming silently into my ears. I didn't cry because she left me, I cried because I realized I had been blind all along. Weeks later, after I was discharged and trying to rebuild myself, my mother finally broke. I came home late one evening from my shift. Vera had stopped by earlier, dropping off some food. My mother sat in the living room, her face turned away from me. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching it. Michael, she said, her voice low, sit down. I obeyed. Something in her tone told me this wasn't an ordinary conversation. I saw her today, she began, her fingers twisting the edge of her wrapper. That girl. Cynthia. My chest tightened. What about her? She was in the market, laughing with her friends. Do you know what she said when she saw me? My mother's voice trembled. She said, Mama Guard. How is your son? Still opening gates for people? And they laughed. Right in my face. Her eyes filled with tears. I had never seen my mother cry in public, not once in my life. She was strong, dignified, the kind of woman who could carry the weight of a family without bending. But in that moment she looked broken. I clenched my fist. I'm sorry, Mama. No, she shook her head. It's not you who should be sorry. Just your father and I. We let this go on too far. We thought we were teaching you a lesson. But we've allowed you to be shamed, humiliated, trampled on. And I can't stand by anymore. Her words made no sense at first. What do you mean? She looked me dead in the eyes. Michael, your father and I, we are not who you think we are. We are not poor. We never were. I laughed bitterly. Mama, look around you. We live in a small house. We count every naira. What do you mean, not poor? Her lips trembled. She clasped my hand across the table. My son, listen carefully. We are the richest family in this city. Your father and I own more businesses than I can count. Real estate, oil, technology, shipping. The Williams Group? It's ours. All of it. We've kept it from you because we wanted you to grow into a man who understands suffering, loyalty, and hard work. But watching you now, I cannot bear it anymore. The world spun. I pulled my hand away. Mama, stop this. You're making fun of me. She didn't blink. Would I lie to you, Michael? Look at me. Do you think I'd make up something like this? Just then the door creaked and my father entered. He had heard everything. Abigail, he said firmly, addressing my mother, we agreed on this. He wasn't supposed to know yet. My mother rose, anger flashing in her eyes. Enough, William. Haven't you seen what our son has gone through? Haven't you watched him limp home from work every night, humiliated and broken? How much longer do you want to test him? My father's gaze turned to me. Strong, unwavering, but heavy. Michael, he said quietly, everything your mother told you is true. But you must understand why we did it. Wealth is a fire. It can burn you or it can warm you. We needed to know who you are without it before handing it over to you. I stood, pacing, my mind a whirlwind. So, all these years? The nights I went hungry in university? The humiliation from Cynthia? The debt I thought I owed for her brother's wedding? All of that, while you were billionaires. Yes, my father said. We paid off the debt, by the way. Quietly. We've always been watching, making sure you didn't fall too far. I clenched my jaw. So you watched me suffer, on purpose? My mother stepped forward, tears streaming. We didn't mean for it to hurt this much, son. Please believe me. I begged your father to tell you earlier. But he insisted it was for your good. Your good, my father echoed, his voice steady. Do you know how many wealthy heirs lose themselves to drugs, women, recklessness? Do you know how many inherit empires and destroy them within years? I needed to know, Michael, if you could stand without money, if you could endure hardship, if you could value the right people. My voice cracked. And what about me? Did it ever occur to you that I might not survive the lessons? That the pain might crush me before I learned the lesson you wanted? Silence filled the room. My father looked away. My mother sobbed quietly. That night, long after they went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the shadows on the wall. I didn't know what to feel. Anger at the betrayal? Gratitude for the truth? Shame for the years I thought I was worthless, when in reality I was heir to an empire? And then there was Vera. Sweet, selfless Vera. She had no idea. She thought I was just a guard. She loved me anyway. What would happen if she found out? Would she look at me differently? Would her kindness turn into duty, her love into awe? I wasn't ready to lose the purity of what we had. So I made a decision that night. I would keep the secret, even from her. As I turned to head to my room, I heard my mother's voice from behind me. She had been standing in the hallway, unseen. Michael, she whispered, her voice trembling, don't let this truth harden you. Please. Remember the pain, but don't drown in it. One day you will see why we did this. And one day you will forgive us. I didn't answer, because forgiveness wasn't something I could give that night. After my mother's revelation, my world felt split in two. On one side there was the truth. I was heir to an empire, the son of billionaires, the future of the Williams dynasty. On the other side was the life I'd always known, Michael the guard. The man mocked by his ex, dismissed by society, forgotten in hospital corridors until a stranger stopped to save him. And somewhere between those two worlds stood Vera. She didn't know the truth about me. She didn't know about the billions, the companies, the dynasty. She only knew the broken man she had found on a rainy night, lying in the street, bleeding and alone. And she loved that man. Part of me longed to tell her. To watch her eyes widen in shock, to see her realize she hadn't just fallen in love with a guard but with the heir to the city's greatest fortune. But another part of me was terrified. What if her love changed the moment she knew? So I stayed silent. Our love didn't come in a sudden rush. It grew quietly, like sunlight seeping through curtains after a long night. I remember the first time I walked again without a crutch. Vera was there, cheering like I'd just won a medal. Careful, she said, holding out her hands as though she could catch me if I fell. I laughed, wobbling a little. I'm fine. I told you I'd be walking in no time. Her lips curled. You're stubborn. That's what you are. Stubborn keeps me alive, I replied, chuckling. She rolled her eyes, but her smile lingered. We ended up walking slowly down her street that evening, the air cool, the sky painted in hues of orange and purple. Vera talked about her childhood, growing up in a modest family, how her father once lost his job and her mother worked double shifts to keep food on the table. She spoke with pride, not shame. It taught me that love matters more than anything, she said softly. Money disappears, but love stays. You remember who stood beside you when you had nothing. Those words pierced me because if she only knew. For the first time in a long while, I felt lighter. Each step forward wasn't just movement for my legs, but for my heart too. Weeks passed and soon our walks became routine. Then came dinners, simple meals in her family's small dining room. Her mother always welcomed me warmly, her father polite but distant. Her younger brother, David, teased me endlessly. Michael, are you sure you're strong enough to handle my sister? He'd say with a grin. Vera would swat his arm. Leave him alone. We'd all laugh, and in those moments, surrounded by her family's warmth, I felt a kind of wealth no money could buy. One night after dinner, Vera and I sat on the porch. The night was cool, fireflies danced in the dark, and somewhere in the distance, a faint rhythm of drums floated in from a neighbor's radio. She leaned her head on my shoulder. You know, she murmured, sometimes I forget how we met. It feels like I've known you forever. I smiled, my chest tightening. Sometimes I feel the same. Her eyes rose to meet mine. Michael, are you happy? The question caught me off guard. Happy? I had spent so long carrying shame and pain that happiness felt foreign. I don't know, I admitted honestly. But when I'm with you, I feel like I could be. Her lips curved into a soft smile. Then that's enough for now. And she leaned in, closing the space between us, her lips brushing mine softly, tenderly. That kiss was the beginning. As our relationship blossomed, Vera and I began to share more of ourselves. One evening we sat by the lake just outside the city. The moonlight painted silver ripples on the water. Vera's hair glistened in the pale glow, and I remember thinking she looked like something heaven had dropped on earth by accident. She hugged her knees and whispered, Michael, can I tell you something? Of course. I've always been afraid of being abandoned. People leave. Jobs, promises, sometimes even family. I tell myself I'm strong, but deep down, I'm scared one day I'll give my whole heart to someone, and they'll just walk away. Her voice cracked on the last word. I turned to her, my heart twisting. Vera, I'm not going anywhere. She looked at me skeptical. Everyone says that. Maybe they do, I said quietly. But I mean it. The night you found me lying on that road, I thought I was finished. Then you came. You didn't even know me, yet you saved me. How can I walk away from the one person who taught me I was worth saving? Her eyes shimmered with tears and she reached for my hand. Don't ever let me regret believing you. I won't, I whispered, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. As if fate wanted to test her love, it didn't take long before the world came again with its cruelty. One afternoon, as Vera and I walked through the market, we ran into Cynthia. She stood with Nicholas, dripping in gold and arrogance. Her eyes scanned me, then landed on Vera. She smirked. So this is what you've been reduced to, Michael? For me to hook this. She sneered at Vera, her words venomous. Do you know who you're with, girl? He's just a guard. A nobody. He couldn't even afford his own hospital bills. Before she could finish, Vera stepped forward, her voice steady and sharp. Enough. Cynthia blinked, stunned. You don't know him, Vera continued. You don't know his strength, his kindness, the way he makes people feel seen. You left him because you were too blind to see his worth. That's your loss, not his. The market had fallen silent, eyes turning to us. Cynthia, flushed with humiliation, grabbed Nicholas' arm and stormed off. I stood frozen, my heart pounding. Vera turned to me, her expression softening. Don't listen to her. You're worth more than she could ever understand. That night, shaken by Cynthia's words but comforted by Vera's loyalty, I couldn't sleep. I thought about her fears, her courage, the way she shielded me without hesitation. The next day, I bought her a small silver bracelet. Nothing extravagant, just simple, modest, beautiful like her. When I gave it to her, her eyes widened. Michael, you didn't have to. I know, I said softly, slipping it onto her wrist. But I wanted to. Think of it as a promise. As long as you wear this, I'll never leave your side. She stared at it, then at me. You really mean that, don't you? With everything in me, I whispered. She threw her arms around me, her voice muffled against my chest. I don't care if you have nothing, Michael. You're everything to me. Her words broke me. Because she had no idea how much everything I truly carried. That night, as we walked home hand in hand, I felt both joy and torment. Joy because Vera's love was the purest I had ever known. Torment because each passing day made my secret heavier. I wanted to tell her. God knows I wanted to. But fear held me back. So I loved her in the shadows. I cherished her laughter, her touch, her belief in me. And I made a silent vow. When the time came, I would reveal the truth. But not yet. Not while our love was still so untainted. For now, I would love her forever and purely. I began to notice the change in Vera before she said a word. Her laughter grew quieter. Her smiles no longer reached her eyes. Sometimes I'd catch her staring off into the distance, lost in thought. One evening as we walked home from the market, I asked gently, Vera, what's wrong? You've been somewhere else lately. She shook her head quickly. It's nothing. But I knew better. Don't do that, I said softly. Don't carry it alone. Talk to me. Her steps slowed. She glanced at me, hesitation flickering in her eyes before the truth slipped out. My family's company, it's falling apart. Contracts are failing, debts piling up. Father hasn't said it outright, but I can see it. We're sinking. Her voice broke on the last word and my chest tightened. I wanted to tell her not to worry, that I could fix everything with one phone call. But I bit my tongue. Not yet. Instead, I reached for her hand. We'll get through this. Together. In the weeks that followed, the whispers became shouts. People in the neighborhood began to talk. The once respected family name of her father was dragged through dust. They can't even pay their workers. Did you hear? The contracts went to Nicholas' father's company instead. From riches to rags. Just like that. The cruel laughter of society was merciless. I saw it eat at Vera, at her mother, at her brother who came home from school angry and ashamed. One night, after dinner at their house, I heard her parents arguing in hushed tones in the living room. "We can't keep this up," her father snapped. "The workers are threatening to strike. Nicholas' father is spreading lies about us. Do you want us dragged to the press as beggars?" Her mother's voice trembled. "Then swallow your pride and ask for help." From who? Who would help us now? I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart aching. I wanted to burst in and say, "I will." But then I saw Vera's face in the shadows, listening too, tears brimming in her eyes. The breaking point came at a public event. Vera's father had been invited to a business dinner, more out of pity than respect. He insisted on attending, clinging to dignity even as his world crumbled. Vera begged me to come with her. "Please, Michael. Just stay close." I agreed. The hall was filled with the city's wealthiest. Glittering gowns, polished shoes, glasses of champagne clinking. And then us, Vera by my side, her father and mother standing stiff, trying to look unbroken. But the whispers started almost immediately. "That's the family that can't pay their workers. I heard their factory will be auctioned next month. And look, is that their daughter with a security guard?" I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to lash out. Then Nicholas' father, tall, proud, with a cruel smile, approached. His voice boomed for all to hear. Well, Chief Emmanuel. What an honor to see you still showing face. Tell me, do your employees know you're sipping champagne while their salaries go unpaid?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Vera's father stiffened, humiliation burning in his eyes. Her mother looked away. And then Nicholas himself stepped forward, sneering at me. "And you brought him? A guard? This is who your daughter parades around? How fitting." His words sliced through me. I saw Vera tense, ready to speak, but I stepped closer to her, whispering, "Don't. Let me." But before I could say a word, Vera's voice rang out, steady and sharp. "Yes, he's the one I chose. He's the one who stands by me when others mock and humiliate. Unlike some who only know how to destroy." Gasps filled the hall. Her words were a blade cutting through the noise. I felt pride swell in my chest, but also guilt. Because while she defended me as a guard, I knew the truth she didn't. Later that night, as we walked home, Vera's father exploded. "Do you realize what you've done?" he shouted at her. "Defending him, a nobody, in front of everyone? Do you think that makes us look strong? It makes us look pathetic." Vera's mother tried to calm him. She was protecting her choice. "Choice?" he barked. "What kind of man chooses to hide behind my daughter while we drown? He's useless." His words struck me harder than I expected. But before I could speak, Vera turned on him. "Don't you dare call him useless. He's done more for me than money ever has. He's the only reason I'm still standing." Her father froze, stunned by her defiance. I stood there, silent, torn between truth and secrecy. I wanted to scream, "I can save you. I can write a check right now that will wipe away your debts." That night, lying awake, I stared at the ceiling of my small apartment. Rage boiled inside me. Rage at Nicholas, at his father, at society that mocked Vera's family. Rage at my own cowardice for staying silent. But deeper than rage was fear. Fear that if I revealed who I truly was, Vera would look at me differently. That the love she gave me, so pure, so free of calculation, would be tainted by the weight of wealth. Still, how long could I hide? I thought of her bracelet, the promise I'd made. "As long as you wear this, I'll never leave your side." Maybe the time was coming to prove it. The next day I visited Vera. She looked tired, worn from the weight of it all, yet when she saw me, she managed a small smile. "You shouldn't keep coming," she said softly. "You'll only get dragged into the mess." I stepped closer, taking her hand. "Vera, I told you, I'm not going anywhere." Her eyes searched mine, glistening with tears. "Michael, if things get worse, promise me you won't do anything reckless. Promise me you'll stay safe. That's all I want." I swallowed between her plea and my growing resolve. "I promise," I whispered. But inside, I knew promises were about to break. Because the storm had reached its peak. And soon I would have to step out of the shadows. The news hit the city like thunder. Vera family company files for bankruptcy. Workers unpaid. Shares plummet. Investors flee. I saw the headlines on the morning paper, bold letters that mocked me. Once titans of commerce, now beggars in the street. I clenched the paper in my hands until it tore. At Vera House, the silence was heavier than grief. The once busy mansion stood hollow, the servants gone, the gates unguarded. Even the chandelier lights seemed dimmer, ashamed to shine on ruin. I found Vera sitting on the floor of her room, her hair unkempt, her eyes hollow. Yet when she saw me, she smiled faintly as if I were the only light left. "They've taken everything," she whispered. He's not himself. Mama cries all day. People point at me in the street." Her voice cracked. "But I don't care. As long as you're here, I'll be fine." Her words were meant to comfort me. But in truth they crushed me. How could I stand by, letting her think I was her only possession, when in reality I was the heir to an empire vast enough to buy back her family's world 10 times over? Yet still I stayed silent. Her father summoned me a week later. I went, though my heart thundered with dread. He sat at the head of the dining table, though there was no feast, only papers, bills, debts, scattered like ashes. His once proud frame was bent, his face weary, but his eyes still burned with that pride that refused to die. "You," he said when I entered. "You come here as if you belong. But now you see the truth. We are finished. And you have nothing to offer. My daughter clings to you because she has lost everything else. But I will not let her sink deeper into shame." I stood silent. "Leave her," he spat. "If you love her, leave her. She deserves a man who can lift her, not one who drags her further into the mud." Vera burst into the room then, her voice fierce. "Papa, enough. Don't you see? He has stood by me when the whole world turned its back. He is more than any of your rich friends who abandoned us the moment we fell. Don't you see who truly loves me?" Her father slammed his hand down, the sound like a gunshot. "He is a nobody, a guard. And I will not have the blood of my house mingled with the dust of his nothingness." Those words cut deeper than knives. And for the first time I felt the chains of silence snap. I stepped forward, my voice calm but carrying the weight of thunder. "Enough." The room froze. "You think I am a nobody," I said slowly. "You see the uniform, the gates I stood by, and you believe that is all I am. You look at me and see dust. But you are wrong." Vera's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My hands did not tremble. I dialed a number, one I had never dared to call before, in front of them. "Transfer 100 million naira to the Emmanuel account." Immediately. There was silence on the line. Then a voice replied, "Yes, sir. It will be done." Vera's father laughed bitterly. "A game. A trick. Do you think I will be fooled by—" But before he could finish, the sound of tires screeched outside. Heavy footsteps approached. The doors burst open, and into the room stepped a man in a tailored suit, flanked by aides. It was Mr. Lawson, the vice president of my family's company. "Sir," he said, bowing slightly toward me, "the transfer has been completed. Emmanuel and Sons will no longer face bankruptcy. We have also secured additional funds for restructuring. Everything is in place just as you ordered." The silence that followed was absolute. Vera's father stared at me, his lips trembling, his face pale as marble. Who are you?" I looked him in the eye. "I'm not just a guard. I am the son of Richard and Abigail Williams, heir to the Williams dynasty, and the man your daughter chose when the world mocked me." Shock and tears. Vera's hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears, her whole body trembling. "All this time," she whispered. You let me believe, you never told me." Her voice broke, not in anger but in disbelief, in awe, in the crushing weight of truth too heavy to bear. I reached for her hand, my own voice breaking. "Because I wanted to know, if you could love me without it. If you could see me, not my father's empire. And you did. You loved me when I was nothing." She collapsed into my arms, sobbing, and I held her as though the world itself could end around us and I would not let go. Her father fell back into his chair, his pride shattered. Tears, real bitter tears, slid down his cheeks. "Forgive me," he whispered. I called you a nobody. I spat on you. And yet you have saved us. You are the man I prayed for, though I was too blind to see it." He stood, his voice trembling. "If you will, sit at the head of this table. Take what is left of our name. Let us." I shook my head. "No. That chair belongs to you. I came not to take but to give. All I ask is your blessing, not your throne." He bowed his head, broken yet redeemed. In the days that followed, whispers spread again, but this time not of ruin but of resurrection. The Emmanuel name rose from ashes, stronger than before, carried on the wings of a secret heir revealed. Vera's mother embraced me with tears of joy. Her father, though humbled, began to look at me not as dust, but as the man his daughter had chosen. And Vera, my Vera, her love for me only deepened. For though the world now knew me as the heir, she would forever remember the man she pulled from the roadside, the man who had nothing but love to give. That was the man she chose. That was the man she loved. And though wealth and power now surrounded us, I swore in my heart I would never stop being that man. I remember the morning of our wedding like it was carved into eternity. The sun rose over the city, soft golden light spilling through the windows of the family estate. It had once been just my parents' home, a place I had barely touched because I didn't belong there in my own mind. But today it was ours. Vera was in the room across the hall, her laughter drifting through the walls like wind over a lake. I couldn't see her yet, but I could feel the energy, the excitement, the quiet tremor of nerves that comes with moments you know will change your life forever. I ran my fingers along my tie, straightened my jacket, but my mind was elsewhere. I thought of the long road that had brought us here, the nights she had stayed by my side in hospitals, the afternoons we walked in silence through quiet streets, the confrontations, the humiliation, the moments when I had felt powerless to protect her or her family. I had never thought we would reach this day. Not after everything. And yet here we were. The ceremony hall was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, scattering light like diamonds across the polished marble floors. Flowers of every color filled the aisles, and there, standing at the altar, was Vera. She looked like she had been spun from sunlight itself, her dress simple, elegant, flowing like a river, but it was her eyes that held me hostage. The eyes that had seen me in pieces, that had believed in me when no one else did. Her father, once so rigid, now stood with his head slightly bowed, a proud tear tracing a line down his cheek. He held her hand as he walked her down the aisle, and I saw the mixture of pride and humility in his gaze. The man who had called me a nobody now saw me as the man Vera had always known I could be, her protector, her equal, her love. When she reached me, we held hands, our fingers intertwining like threads that had been waiting to knot together forever. Her smile was radiant, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of us, a heartbeat suspended in space. "I promise," I whispered, "to love you through every storm, to hold you when the world feels cruel, and to never let go." Her lips trembled. "And I promise to stand with you, in silence and in triumph, in joy and in pain. Michael, I have loved you when the world mocked us, and I will love you for all the days to come." The officiant spoke words I barely heard. I was lost in her eyes, in the warmth of her hand, in the truth that had carried us through so much. When I kissed her, it was not just a kiss, it was a vow sealed in every heartbeat, every trial, every secret we had endured. Marriage did not change the essence of our love. It amplified it. Our first days together were quiet, ordinary, yet extraordinary. We cooked together in the kitchen, laughing when something spilled. We sat on the balcony, sipping coffee as the city awoke beneath us, Vera leaning against me, her head on my shoulder. One evening, as we unpacked a box of old books from her family library, she looked up at me, eyes glistening. "Michael, do you ever think about those nights when I found you in the rain? When I stayed by your side even though I didn't know you fully?" I smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Every day." It was the moment I realized love doesn't need gold or power or approval. It just needs a heart that beats for another. She leaned in and kissed me, lingering. "And you have always had that heart, Michael. Even when you were hiding who you were, even when the world laughed at us." The children arrived. Time passed as it always does, and our family grew. The day our first child was born was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I held a tiny being, fragile and perfect, wrapped in a blanket, with Vera exhausted but radiant smile beside me. "This is us," she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Our love made real." I kissed her temple. "And we will protect them just as you protected me." A few years later, our second child arrived, and with them our home became filled with laughter, chaos, and the warmth of life fully realized. Vera was incredible, patient, fierce, loving. Watching her care for our children, seeing the same loyalty and devotion she had once shown me, I understood more deeply than ever that love, true love, does not need recognition to exist. It simply is. While our home was filled with love, the city still called for my presence. I stepped into the helm of my family's company, the empire my parents had built and tested me to inherit. But I ruled differently. I had known humiliation, poverty, and judgment. I knew what it was to be mocked, to feel powerless. I wanted the empire to be more than wealth. I wanted it to be justice, opportunity, and protection. Vera stood beside me at every meeting, her counsel invaluable, her instincts sharp. I often caught myself watching her in boardrooms, noting the fire in her eyes, the compassion in her voice. She was my anchor, my mirror, and my equal. Together we restored companies, saved jobs, and rebuilt businesses that had been neglected. Our triumphs were not just ours. They were shared with the workers, the families, the communities who had suffered under poor management. And in every victory, I remembered the nights she had saved me from despair, even when she didn't know the power I held. Of course, the past does not die quietly. One afternoon I saw her again, my ex-girlfriend, the one who had humiliated me, the one who had left me when I had nothing. She stood outside a new, smaller office building, her posture brittle, her designer clothes a poor attempt to mask desperation. Her eyes met mine. Recognition flickered, followed by disbelief and then, regret. "You," she stammered. "You're Michael. It's really you?" I let her struggle for words, my hand resting on Vera's shoulder as she smiled at me, radiant, whole. "Yes," I said simply. "It's me. And this," I gestured to our life, "is where love truly belongs." She faltered, tears streaming. I was wrong. I should have. I didn't. I mocked you when I should have." I shook my head, but it wasn't malice that I felt, it was closure. Vera saw me when I had nothing. She chose me for my heart, not my status. That is the only truth that matters. The word struck her like a wave. Her lips quivered, and for the first time she understood that the life she had spurned was not about wealth, it was about loyalty, courage, and pure love. That evening we returned home to a house filled with laughter, children running in the corridors, Vera's soft hum in the kitchen, and the warmth of our family finally complete. I held her close as we watched our children play in the garden. "Do you ever think about the beginning?" I asked quietly. "All the time," she whispered. "I remember the night I found you on the road. I thought I was helping a stranger. But you were never a stranger. You were always mine." "And you," I said, kissing her forehead, "were always mine. Even when I could give you nothing, even when the world mocked us, even when I hid who I was, you loved me." Her laugh, soft and trembling, echoed in the hall. "And I always will." I held her tighter, my heart full, my soul finally at peace. We had walked through fire, humiliation, despair, and secrecy, and we had emerged whole, together, unbroken. The ex-girlfriend's regret lingered like a shadow at the edge of our lives, a reminder of the cruelty of pride and the cost of choosing shallow love over true devotion. But I didn't dwell on it. Vera hand in mine was the only reality I needed. Her love had saved me, her loyalty had defined me, and our children reminded me daily of the life we had built, one that no wealth, no humiliation, no deception could ever destroy. And so, under the golden light of a setting sun, with Vera laughing softly beside me and the sound of children playing echoing through the halls, I finally understood what it meant to be rich. Not in money, not in status, but in love. In family. In truth. I had been a guard. I had been humiliated. I had been tested. And in the end I had everything. Everything that mattered. And I would never ever let it go. The end. The moral lesson of this story is clear, powerful, and deeply human. Backhand index pointing right. True love is proven in humility, not in wealth or appearances. Michael's journey shows that money, power, and social status mean nothing without loyalty, compassion, and sacrifice. Vera chose him when he had nothing, stood by him in humiliation, and loved him beyond what the world could see. That loyalty became the foundation of their joy and redemption. Never judge people by their status or outward appearance. Michael was mocked as a nobody, but he carried an empire within him. Pride blinded others, while Vera humility opened her to true love. Loyalty in hard times is the truest test of love. Vera devotion during Michael's lowest points became the proof of a love unbreakable by storms. Humility redeems pride. Vera father, once arrogant and dismissive, found redemption when he humbled himself and accepted the truth. Wealth without love is emptiness. Love without wealth is still fullness. True richness is found in family, loyalty, and shared sacrifice, not just in money or social power. The past can regret, but it cannot rewrite the future. The ex-girlfriend's regret was a reminder that shallow love built on pride will always fail, while true love stands the test of time. Final takeaway. Love that endures hardship becomes unbreakable. In the end, family, loyalty, and truth matter far more than wealth, pride, or status. Shalom.